New York, United Nations, September 23rd, 2025. The United Nations General Assembly became the stage for an unusually sharp exchange between French President Emmanuel Macron and US President Donald Trump. In a moment that captured global attention, Macron publicly challenged Trump to deliver peace in Gaza if he truly hopes to earn the Nobel Peace Prize, a recognition Trump has repeatedly suggested he deserves. Speaking to French broadcaster BFM TV from New York, Macron directly linked Trump's ambitions for a Nobel Prize to the urgent need to end the Gaza conflict. His remarks came just one day after France formally recognized a Palestinian state, a move that placed Paris at the heart of the fraught Middle East debate. Macron emphasized that Trump had styled himself as a peacemaker before the UN General Assembly, boasting of past achievements and his supposed role in resolving multiple disputes. But the French leader made clear that such declarations ring hollow unless Gaza is addressed. Emmanuel Macron said, "I see a mobilized American president who this morning tells you from the podium, 'I want peace. I have resolved 7 conflicts,' that he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. The Nobel Peace Prize is only possible if this conflict ends. That is why we must pressure the Israeli government to end the conflict in Gaza, so that we can finally free the 48 hostages, so that we can finally reopen the humanitarian aid routes and save the lives of children, women, men, and the elderly." The statement underscored Macron's view that genuine peace credentials require measurable action in Gaza, not simply diplomatic claims or symbolic gestures. When asked about Macron's sharp remarks, Trump initially downplayed the comments. He broadened the scope of discussion beyond Gaza, insisting that his pursuit of peace involved conflicts more widely, including Russia's war in Ukraine. Donald Trump responded, "Well, they all say that together. I mean, it's Gaza, it's Russia. That's it. I think Gaza is going to come. We're going to have a very important meeting. And my next meeting, in fact, will be very important with the leaders of the region. And we're going to talk about Gaza. We're going to see if we can do something about it. We want to stop it. We want to get our hostages back or theirs." Trump's words revealed his familiar pattern, portraying himself as central to multiple global crises while leaving the details of action vague. His emphasis on meetings and talks suggested process rather than concrete solutions. The exchange unfolded as leaders gathered in New York for one of the most consequential General Assembly sessions in years. Trump, newly re-elected, has attempted to recast himself as a global statesman. His speech to the Assembly earlier in the day stressed his record of resolving conflicts, a theme he has pushed repeatedly despite skepticism among analysts. Trump claimed to have ended 7 conflicts, though independent observers note that several of those disputes remain unresolved or merely frozen. Macron, by contrast, positioned himself as a realist. His recognition of Palestine placed France in direct tension with Israel and aligned Paris with countries pressing for urgent humanitarian action in Gaza. The Nobel Peace Prize has long held symbolic value for Trump. During his first term, he floated the idea that his talks with North Korea or his brokering of regional agreements might earn him the award. Critics, however, argue that Trump's foreign policy record is marked more by disruption than enduring peace. Macron's challenge brought this tension into sharp focus. By explicitly tying Trump's Nobel aspirations to ending the war in Gaza, Macron framed the issue in personal terms that Trump could not easily ignore. It was a diplomatic maneuver, simultaneously pressing the US president on policy while exploiting his well-known desire for recognition. Trump's further remarks highlighted the balancing act he faces. Donald Trump said, "Well, they say that all together. I mean, it's Gaza, it's Russia, it's everything. I think Gaza is going to come along. We're going to have a very important meeting, and my next meeting actually is going to be very important with leaders in the region, and we're going to talk about Gaza. We're going to see if we can do something about it. We want to stop it. We want to get our hostages back or theirs." His language, alternating between vague optimism and appeals to action, reflected both the complexity of the Gaza crisis and his political instincts. He sought to reassure that progress was possible while avoiding specific commitments. Macron did not retreat from his stance. For him, Gaza represents both a moral imperative and a test of international credibility. France's decision to recognize Palestine has already sparked backlash from Israel and cautious praise from parts of the Arab world. By pressing Trump publicly, Macron aimed to leverage Washington's influence over Israel while also signaling that Europe would not remain passive. Emmanuel Macron reiterated, "I see a mobilized American president who told you this morning from the podium, 'I want peace. I have resolved 7 conflicts. Who wants the Nobel Peace Prize?' The Nobel Peace Prize is only possible if you end this conflict, and therefore we must put pressure on the government of Israel to end the conflict in Gaza so that we can finally free the 48 hostages, so that we can finally reopen the humanitarian aid routes and save the lives of children, women, men, and the elderly." This was not simply a comment on Trump's rhetoric. It was an insistence that the US wield its influence decisively. Later in the day, cameras captured Trump and Macron shaking hands before a bilateral meeting. While the gesture was outwardly cordial, the context left no doubt that tension underpinned the exchange. Both leaders had positioned themselves as central players in the Middle East peace process, yet with starkly different approaches. Trump has leaned heavily on backroom diplomacy, emphasizing his personal role and relationships with regional leaders. Macron, meanwhile, has sought to pressure Israel directly and appeal to humanitarian concerns. Trump's repeated inclusion of Russia in his answers highlighted another key fault line. His attempts to position himself as a mediator in Ukraine have been met with skepticism, particularly in Europe. Macron's framing of Gaza as the decisive test clashed with Trump's effort to spread credit across multiple conflicts. This divergence illustrates broader debates over how peace and leadership are defined on the world stage. For Macron, Gaza is immediate, visceral, and humanitarian. For Trump, peace is a more abstract status symbol, something tied to personal legacy rather than immediate relief for civilians. The Macron-Trump exchange reverberated far beyond New York. For Palestinians, the French president's remarks signaled growing international impatience with Israel's military operations. For Israelis, they underscored the mounting diplomatic pressure from Europe. For Trump, they represented a challenge not only from a fellow Western leader, but from an ally who understands the symbolic power of public statements. The Nobel Peace Prize, often criticized for its politicization, became a rhetorical weapon in Macron's hands. By daring Trump to earn it through real action in Gaza, Macron forced a collision between Trump's ego and one of the world's most intractable conflicts. The United Nations General Assembly is often a forum for lofty words, but in this instance, words were sharpened into a political duel. Macron's insistence that Trump must end the Gaza war to achieve Nobel glory set a clear line. Peace prizes are not handed out for ambition, only for results. Trump, for his part, tried to maintain optimism while keeping his options open. His talk of very important meetings with regional leaders reflected an approach rooted in personal diplomacy and negotiation, but critics say it lacks the urgency that the humanitarian crisis demands. As the cameras rolled, the handshake between the two leaders symbolized both alliance and tension. The world now watches to see whether Trump can match Macron's challenge with action, or whether the Gaza war will remain yet another conflict where promises outpace peace.